What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and get better every single day. Today, we're going to be talking about a different subject, but one that I think many people ponder, and that is, what would an alcohol-free lifestyle look like? I have a gentleman that is an expert in this, and it's a fascinating conversation. James Swanwick is an Australian-American stop drinking expert, author, investor, entrepreneur, and former SportsCenter anchor on ESPN. He is the creator of stop drinking organization Alcohol Free Lifestyle, which help business owners and executives finally break free from alcohol without AA, rehab, or willpower. James is the host of Alcohol Free Lifestyle podcast and author of the upcoming book Clear, the only neuroscience-based method for high achievers to finally break free from alcohol. Well, James, brother, so good to see you and have you on the show. I guess I'll start there and then we'll dive into some of these. You do some fascinating work and I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Thank you, JM. I appreciate you having me here.
I guess I'll start right with, you obviously, the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle podcast, this idea of, not idea, it's what you do is to help people break away from alcohol. When did you know this was your path, brother? Was this something you've always been passionate about? Did you never drink yourself? Was there a moment? I guess that's my natural question is, where did this alcohol relationship become so important that you said, this is my life's work?
Well, I was a socially acceptable drinker growing up in my native country of Australia, in that I would have 2 or 3 drinks most nights of the week. I would drink heavily on weekends. I didn't get a DUI. I didn't get arrested. I wasn't rock bottom. I didn't wake up in a ditch. I wasn't what society might deem to be an alcoholic. However, I started drinking at age 16 and I went right through until age 35. And after almost 20 years of that consistency of drinking, I realized that I'd put on about 30 pounds of unwanted body weight. I was tired. I was irritable. I wasn't sleeping great. I was envious of other people. I was trying to get a business going. It wasn't really happening for me because I was foggy and distracted. And I got to age 35 and I was in Austin, Texas. I went out to a South by Southwest festival and I had 2 Bombay Sapphire gin and tonics. And I woke up the next morning in the hotel where I was staying and I just felt blah. I felt average. And I went next door to this IHOP, an International House of Pancakes, and I was sitting there. And then it dawned on me, what am I doing in an IHOP? And I realized that I just felt mediocre and I wasn't fulfilling my potential. I was operating at what felt like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. So in that IHOP, I made a decision to stop drinking for 30 days. And in 30 days, I lost 13 pounds. My skin got better. I auditioned to become a television anchor on a show called SportsCenter on ESPN, which is arguably the world's most iconic sports TV news show. And to my bewilderment, they gave me the job. I attracted a dream romantic partner and I thought, well, this is pretty good. I might just keep going. And it's now been 15 years alcohol free. And, that one decision in that IHOP just to take a break led to me creating 2 very successful businesses. And then 10 years ago in 2015, I created what is this company now called Alcohol Free Lifestyle. And we help executives, CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs to successfully stop drinking so they can perform in their business, save a marriage, be more present with their kids, and just feel so much better about life.
Well, I love your success. Obviously, that 30 days, and you had this amazing experience, and it's obviously led to many more successes. One of the things that I find, because I hear people all the time, I don't consider myself a drinker, but do I have cocktails? Yes, I do. People know that. Love tequila, love red wine. And I did a dry January. And, James, here's what's funny. I expected for 30 days I was going to wake up and angels would be singing and it would be awesome. I would drop those 13 pounds like you did. I actually ended up gaining 2 or 3 pounds. I didn't have that experience. And so my question or my thought is, it wasn't anything really different for me. And that's just my experience. But I'm curious, are there people that absolutely should not drink and people that, what are your thoughts on it, brother? Are you like devout, like just don't do it? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a just don't do it kind of guy, especially if you consider yourself a high performer. And when I say high performer, if you're a business owner, you're an executive, you're middle aged, just don't do it. And here's why. There was a study out of the UK in 2022 of 35,000 middle aged adults. And what it showed was that even one seemingly innocent drink per night, which is only 7 standard drinks a week, that was enough to cause some level of gray and white matter degeneration in the brain. Now, that should be a wake up call for everyone. Now, anecdotally, I am sure that your listeners know that if they drink even one seemingly innocent drink a night, a couple, most people are having at least a couple, that does compromise your sleep. And when your sleep is compromised, you wake up just a little bit irritable, just a little bit foggy. Maybe you snap at your wife or your husband. Maybe you're not as present with your children as you could have been. Maybe you don't make that additional sales call in the afternoon because you're tired and you're lethargic. Maybe you don't fire that person, you procrastinate on it, or you don't hire that person, or you don't have the strategic thinking to create an additional revenue stream in your business or to go for that promotion in your career, in your job. So it's not rock bottom. It's not that a drink a night is going to have you wake up in a ditch. But cumulatively, over many years and decades, it becomes death by 1,000 cuts. Just a little bit of extra unwanted weight, just a little bit extra irritability, just a little bit not so present with your kids. And cumulatively, that can destroy marriages, destroy relationships, have people thinking negative thoughts and not being fully functional in their business and career.
So if alcohol is a poison, which I think it's pretty easy to argue it is.
It's attractively packaged poison, JM. That's all it is. I'm telling you, it is attractively packaged poison. We put a whole bunch of toxins, we stick it in a very fancy bottle, and we call it socially acceptable alcohol.
And so if we all can agree on that, which I mean, it's not hard to argue. There's been enough bad things that have happened, whether it's rock bottom or like you said, it's just cumulative effect. People choose to do it because obviously I would think socially they want to relax, they like the taste. What are your thoughts and what do you kind of before we get into the book and all the things, but I'm just curious, like when you hear that, because again, I'll be one that when I go to a steak dinner, I love a good glass of red wine. It kind of goes hand in hand. What do you say to that when it's like, you know what? That's what you've been conditioned to do. What are some of the things that people can do to take that out and maybe experience life just as wonderfully as they did with that glass of wine, taking it out?
Let me explain the cultural conditioning first, and that is there are smiling assassins everywhere, and a smiling assassin is your friend or your family member or the waiter or the waitress who's smiling as they offer you attractively packaged poison. So, for example, if you go to a restaurant, the waiter or waitress will come over and say, "Hello, JM. Hello, James. Can I get you started with a glass of wine? Would you like to get you a couple of drinks, some cocktails to start?" They're essentially saying, "Hey, JM. Hey, James. Can I get you started with a glass of irritable sleep, some distraction tomorrow? Okay, can I get you a glass of mediocrity?" Because that's the effects of the drinking. But because they're smiling, we associate alcohol with pleasure and joy and elegance and sophistication. When we go over to someone's house, of course, our hosts want to be hospitable. And so they say, "Hey, JM, can I get you a drink? We got beer. We got wine. What would you like?" And they're smiling. And then, of course, when we meet up with friends at the bar or a restaurant, we cheers, don't we? We pick up our alcoholic drink and we smile and we go, "Cheers, let's raise a toast." We do it at a wedding where we toast the bride and groom and we're all smiling and we've got this poison in a sleek champagne glass and we say, "To the bride and groom." And we're all smiling. And so we have this association that consuming this poison is fun. It creates romance, it creates connection, bonds, joy, it relieves stress and anxiety. And of course, we would think that because we've been conditioned to think that since we were a little child. So that is a real decades long conditioning that we have set in ourselves, which makes it very challenging later on for us in a social situation when people are offering us drinks to decline that alcohol, because now we're thinking, well, hang on a second. Drinking alcohol seems to equal fun and pleasure and connection, and not drinking alcohol seems to mean deprivation or being dull or boring. And so, of course, we just continued drinking. To answer the second part of your question, JM, is what can you do differently so you enjoy your steak at the restaurant, so you enjoy the connections with your friends or your colleagues or your clients, is to associate the joy and the reward of not drinking as opposed to drinking being the joy and the reward. And now, of course, you are conditioned to associate, oh, I'm just enjoying this steak so much more because I'm pairing it with this red wine, or, oh, I'm enjoying this red wine because I'm out to dinner. It's the end of the day. If we can break that association and instead have you believe and feel and experience that, oh, I love being out having a steak with my friends and colleagues and family. And oh, isn't this fantastic? And I'm enjoying drinking this soda water ice and a piece of lime. Or I'm enjoying drinking this alcohol-free beer. Or I'm enjoying drinking this mocktail or cranberry juice, whatever it is. Then you can have an equally enjoyable experience with your friends or your wife or your family or whoever without having to drink toxins in the process, and therefore being able to avoid the negative consequences that come from the consumption of those toxins.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And I come from a place that my wife doesn't drink, hasn't in our almost 20 years of marriage. And yet, that's something that's, like I said, I enjoy mine. She does not. And often I hear this all the time, James. People are like, well, we thought you were drunk, because my wife is very energetic and she's fun but she doesn't need that. I don't know what you call it, the social, like, to let her hair down. It's just how she is naturally. And what I've found, some people, the resistance here is, but I can't loosen up. I'm not comfortable being me without a few cocktails. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody, but even someone I'm thinking right now, his name's Adam, awesome dude up in Montana. I think it's been a year and a half he stopped drinking. And one of the comments he said is, I'm just not as fun, Adam, as I was having a couple beers. And I go, man, because he loves how he feels. And yet he's got this, maybe it's a mental stigma. I don't know what it is. And that's what I'm curious on what you've seen with people you work with and you've helped.
My experience has been different. My experience was actually I became more fun and I danced on more tables and I had more energy and I was more the life of the party when I became alcohol free. I actually talk about this a lot in the book that I wrote, which is called Clear. And there's a whole chapter there about how to have fun alcohol free, even if you're an introvert and even if you've been relying on drinking alcohol for years to try and quote unquote loosen up. What most people find is that after some initial social awkwardness, let's call it, maybe first 2 to 4 weeks, and after we've given them some scripts on what to say to people and how to say it and how to behave and how to have some verbal conversations being alcohol free when other people are drinking, people tend to relax. People tend to experience more joy, more pleasure, more fun from actually being alcohol free. And the most beautiful thing is you don't get those negative consequences the following day. You don't get the irritability, the fogginess, the distraction, because you're well hydrated because you've been drinking soda water or you've been drinking mocktails or whatever the night before. So there is a way to do it. And someone's challenge, I would say, is how can I be the most engaging person when I am being alcohol free? Now, I would submit your friend that you were referring to there still hasn't quite made the connection between being alcohol free and fun. So he's probably mistakenly believing that alcohol equals I'm relaxed, I can open up, I'm funny, and not drinking equals I'm depriving myself, I'm dull, and I'm boring. But if we can just shift that mindset, and now we start looking at alcohol as dull and boring and negative, and we can start looking at living alcohol free as the reward and the pleasure and the joy and the energy and the connection. Now we get all these beautiful positive benefits from choosing an alcohol-free lifestyle.
Was that the 30 days for you where you were just like, yep, I'm good. Like, don't need it in my life? Because I mean, it sounds like, again, Sports Center, which we have to talk about, huge Sports Center guy most of my life. But was that your moment, your eureka, where you're like, forget it? My life got really good. I found the love of my life. I have this amazing job. Like, I'm feeling amazing. Lost 13 pounds. Like, was that your eureka moment, or did it take you a little bit longer? And I mean that, not flippantly. It feels like that kind of solidified it for you. Whereas some people, like Adam, a year and a half in, he's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't see him going back to drinking, but it hasn't hit him the way it did for you. What was that for you when you said, this is no longer a part of my life?
It was exactly at 1 year alcohol free where I had that epiphany. So from the first 30 days all the way up until the 1 year anniversary of not drinking, I was still open to the idea of drinking again. Even though I had these profound benefits from not drinking in month 2, 3, month 6, month 9, month 10, I still was like, oh, I'll probably drink again. It's fine. I'll just see if I can go a year. And, I kept pushing it. Oh, maybe I can go a year. Maybe I can go a year. At a year anniversary of not drinking, I found myself back at the same festival, South by Southwest, which is the annual festival in Austin, Texas. I went into the Luster Pearl Bar in Rainey Street in downtown Austin. I went up to the bar and I ordered a Budweiser. And the barman came over, gave me the Budweiser, and I went to put it to my lips to have what I thought would be a celebratory beer to celebrate 1 year alcohol free. And right at the last minute, I smelt the beer and I just put it down and I just thought for about 2 minutes. And I thought, wow, in 1 year, I've got my dream career, my dream job. I'm on television talking about sports. I'm being paid handsomely well. I've got this dream partner. I've got the body that nature intended me to have. I'm less irritable. When my parents phoned me from Australia, I was living in Bristol, Connecticut at the time, because that's where ESPN is based. When my parents would call me from Australia, I would love to take the call. Whereas when I was drinking and I was irritable, when my parents would call, I'd always be saying, oh, they always call it inopportune times. God, that's annoying. But I realize now I was much more calm. I was less irritable. I was more open. I was more loving. I was more generous. And I was thinking about all these things as I sat in that Luster Pearl Bar in Rainey Street, downtown Austin. And at the very last moment, I put the beer down, called the barman over, and I said, actually, I'm not going to have it. And I tipped him, paid him, and I walked out, and I haven't so much as picked up a drink since. And that was in 2011. So it's been 15 years of being alcohol free. And I've never once questioned it since then, I have to say. And to be clear, I wasn't an alcoholic. It wasn't like I had this terrible life. I just had a mediocre average life. And then when I stopped drinking alcohol, it became like compound interest, where I started these 2 companies. I created a sleep e-commerce business. I now have this organization which coaches executives and entrepreneurs and high achievers to stop drinking alcohol. My health is great. I have a testosterone level of 1,000 plus. I'll be 50 in September. I feel damn good. And so the epiphany for me was really on that 1 year anniversary, JM.
Socially, and then I have so many other questions, but I'm trying to put myself as an audience member going, you know what? I'm considering doing this. Well, I want to ask all the questions I can that to debunk some of the challenges they might have socially. How was it in terms of did you have a new set of friends essentially? Because I know one of the challenges is, well, James is a drinker and now James isn't. Maybe he doesn't fit in with our circle. Did you have any of that? And if so, what was the experience like? Because I hear this often where I think it's more fearful than anything. If I do this, I'm not going to fit in. Did you experience that at all, James, or was it just like, nah, easy street?
I had those fears in the beginning, certainly. And 2 weeks after I stopped drinking, I was out at the Jones Bar on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood with a couple of friends of mine. And I told them I wasn't drinking, and they still encouraged me to drink anyway. In fact, my friend Zach went to the bar to get around, came back, gave me what I had ordered, which was a soda water. And as I went to drink it, I looked at him and he was kind of grinning. And I said to him, "Did you put vodka in this?" And he said, "Yeah, I did." And I thought, wow, this is amazing. My best friends are still trying to get me to drink. That's so interesting. And I was irritated by that, I have to say. But I stayed true to it and I didn't drink. The next week, actually, I asked this woman out on a date and I got to the bar about 15 minutes before the date and said to the bartender, when I order drinks for me and my date, can you just make sure mine is just soda water? I'm going to say vodka soda water, but just make it soda water. Because I was worried that my date was going to think that I had a drinking problem or that I was an alcoholic or that she was going to judge me or that I was going to be a killjoy. So I was worried about that. And so I tricked my date throughout the night. I drank soda water. She thought I was drinking vodka soda waters. But then a few weeks later, she found out that I hadn't been drinking and there was an energetic disconnect in her and that relationship didn't continue because she felt like I lied to her by omission. So I was like, wow, my best friends don't approve of me not drinking. And then when I try to hide it from someone that I'm not drinking and just go on and they find out, then I get in trouble for lying by omission. I'm like, this is fascinating. I will say, though, what happened was over many months, I didn't cut my friends. But what I found was that I started gravitating towards a healthier, more growth-minded set of friends. So I didn't intentionally say, oh, I'm going to go and hang out with only non-drinkers now. It's just my interests and my curiosities became around health and fitness and entrepreneurship, personal development, growth-mindedness. I joined a gym. I decided to train for a half marathon and raise money for charity. That introduced me to a lot of growth-minded people. Um, uh, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, which I never would have done before. I used to think he was some crazy personal development cult leader. But I went there and I met some other really positive vibration people who either didn't drink at all or drank so modestly that it wasn't needed for social connection. And then I got into the entrepreneurial world. And I have to say, I only really know people in the entrepreneurial space who either don't drink at all and love their life and are very successful, or they drink very modestly. Drinking is not required to have a connection, to meet up and have a dinner. It's not necessary. In fact, when I share or people ask me about being alcohol free, far from people saying, go on, just have a drink, go, or thinking that I'm some kind of boring person, I get a lot of questions about it because people actually admire the fact that I am alcohol free and are curious about it for themselves.
Well, the other thing that I would imagine, my wife says this all the time, the amount of money you save by being alcohol free, especially at restaurants. Like, look, man, they're making a ton of money on just the upcharge of this. Have you done any studies on that, James, where it's like, on average, people save X amount? I mean, obviously, it depends how much they drink, but are you seeing this massive cost savings? Because being an entrepreneur, investing, I mean, I'm just thinking of all the wins here, and it seems like that would be a big one as well.
Your drinking habits are costing you millions of dollars. There's a chapter in my book where I walk you through this calculation where entrepreneurs and executives can determine the actual financial cost of their drinking. Now, to me, it's mostly insignificant what you spend on alcohol. What's more interesting to me is what you don't generate because of the consequences of the alcohol. Now, let's do an example here, JM. Think of an entrepreneur. This person does, say, $1 million in revenue in their business, okay? And they're a drinker. And they're not an alcoholic, but they drink half a bottle of wine each night, most nights of the week. Maybe they have a couple of vodka tonics. Maybe they're drinking some beers as they watch the NFL games on the weekends, whatever, right? Like they're drinking enough and they've been doing this consistently over years. Now, because of those drinking habits, most entrepreneurs who I ask, how effective are you in your business? They will mostly say about a 6 out of 10. All right, maybe a 7, sometimes a 5, depending on the level of their drinking. And I say, okay, so with you feeling like your energy and clarity and strategic thinking is at a 6 out of 10 and you generate $1 million in revenue, great. What about if You stopped drinking alcohol consistently, and now you slept better, and now you weren't irritable. And in fact, you were clear, and you had focus, and you had energy, and you made a couple of additional sales calls at the end of the day, or you thought more strategically and you made better choices, and you hired some help, and you delegated and you automated, and you created an additional revenue stream because you had that clarity and focus and energy from being consistently alcohol free. How do you think you'd feel, or how would you rate your performance on a scale of 1 to 10 then? And usually the entrepreneur will tell me, well, at least an 8, maybe a 9. I'm like, okay, well, let's just say modestly an 8 out of 10. Okay. So that's an improvement from a 6 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 in terms of your performance, your thinking, your strategy, your energy, your mindset. How much money do you think you might generate in your business if you were operating at an 8 out of 10 instead of a 6 out of 10? And invariably, they'll tell me something like 1.5 million, maybe I double it to 2 million. And I said, well, let's just be modest about it and say, let's just say that you make an additional $500,000 revenue because you're alcohol free. They say, okay, yeah, that seems fair. I'm like, okay, so your drinking is costing you $500,000 a year. Now, the penny drops, the mic drops. I see it in their face, in their mannerisms. They go, oh, I got it. Yeah. It's not that I'm only spending $5,000 or $6,000 a year buying alcohol. It's that I'm not generating $500,000 a year because of the alcohol. JM, here's where it gets interesting. I'm pulling out my calculator, okay? Right? Let's do $500,000 divided by 365 days of the year. If you consistently drink, it's costing you $1,369 a day. $1,369 a day when you choose to drink alcohol. Imagine that. It's not what you're losing, because it's not literally coming out of your bank account, but it's what you're not generating. It's what you're not making. $1,369.86 a day, every day you choose to drink. That's the real financial cost of being irritable, stressed, not sleeping well, being a drinker.
Yeah, I hear the word mindset constantly, and that's what it feels like. Because again, you come from Australia and obviously the States, and I would say culturally they're heavy drinking countries. Although then I think of most of Europe, most of Russia. I mean, I think of literally it's kind of all over the world. Actually, now that I think about it, so to say that Australia and America are more than any other country probably is even wrong, but you probably have studies on that. But that's not the question. The question is, I hear this word mindset again and again and again. And you have a topic on here, which is the mindset of a peak performance entrepreneur. And I'm just curious, brother, because it's all been focused on alcohol at this point. Let's just talk about mindset for a second, because clearly these shifts in your life from being in the bar in Austin, putting the Budweiser up and literally setting it down and saying no, that was a mindset shift. That was literally, you said, no, this is just not what I'm going to do. To the friend where he brings the alcohol and you say, I'm not going to do that, man. Like, why are you doing this? Talk about this mindset shift, the mindset of a peak performance entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's an identity that I have taken on, which is I'm growth minded. I am interested in personal development. I want to know and learn all the time. ABL, always be learning, is my motto, in addition to ABT, which is always be testing. So in my business, I'm always testing things. And in my personal life, I'm always trying to learn new things. So for example, I have coaches. I don't have a coach, I have coaches. Every Wednesday for 25 minutes for the last 100 weeks, I've spoken to a mindset coach who I've hired. And sometimes, I realize that the call is about to happen and I'm distracted and I'm doing something and I'm like, oh, God, it's almost like an inconvenience. But then that accountability of just getting that call and then talking through whatever's going on has enabled me to grow exponentially in my business and in my marriage and as a father. my wife and I, we have a marriage counselor, a relationship expert. And there's nothing inherently wrong with our relationship. In fact, I would describe our relationship as a 9 out of 10. But we have a 75-minute call every 2 weeks just to talk out any lingering grievances there may be, to celebrate each other, to celebrate the things that we're doing really well. So that consistency and accountability, again, is a mindset for me, which is I am growth minded. I like to go to conferences. I mentioned Tony Robbins before. I went to his Date with Destiny conference in West Palm Beach, Florida in December. I go to a business mastermind often in Miami, Florida every quarter. I'm in this business mastermind. I'm in a WhatsApp group with 170 other men who are entrepreneurs all scattered throughout North America. I've been in that membership or that mentorship community now for 11 years. And almost everyone there is growth minded, supportive of each other. It's a real community. So when I talk about mindset, I'm talking about how do I get people who are far more experienced than me in certain areas of life. I hire those people and I hire them to keep me accountable and to keep me in the conversation. I invest in my education. I invest in my growth. And I put myself around people such as these masterminds who are going to support me, and not just support me, but push me, hold me accountable and help me identify blind spots. I have a coach in the gym every, not every day, maybe let's say 4 days a week. For the last 2 years, I've had a personal trainer. And even when I'm traveling overseas and I'm abroad, we do a virtual call. So he calls in from where he is. And if I'm in the UK for the summer or I'm back in Australia, we make the time zones work. And I just take my iPhone into the gym and I put my headphones in and he tells me what to do in the gym. So I'm always taking care of my body. That's what I mean by a mindset shift. And so I identify as I'm the type of guy who takes care of his family. I'm the type of leader who's clear and candid with his staff. I'm the type of guy who values his health. I'm the type of guy who supports his friends. And so that identity really lives within inside of me. And then that shows up in the thoughts and the actions that I take, and therefore what I would perceive to be the fantastic benefits that I generate.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, obviously, Atomic Habits, he talks a ton about this as you take on this identity as a runner, and guess what? You run. So, take on the identity as being a great father, you're going to be engaged with your kids. I really, I resonate with that a ton. Do you have a specific morning routine? I know people talk about morning routines, evening routines. Do you have one that you're like, man, this is just mind blowing? And he's pulling out a book, so I'm guessing the answer is going to be somewhere around yes. What does that look like for you, James?
Yeah, so I usually wake up around 6:30 most mornings, between 6:30 6:45. And I have this practice that I've been doing now for about 7 years called the Daily 20. And you can see I have a journal here, and you can see I got a little 20 there on the front, which I've put there. And what I do is I write down 20 things that I'm grateful for each morning. Not 3 things, not 5 things. That's cute, but 20. And the reason I do 20 is because I want it to be hard. I want it to make me think. I want to be looking for things to be grateful for, because what that does is it activates this bundle of nerves in our brain called the reticular activating system, otherwise known as the RAS. And when I quote unquote force myself to write down 20 things that I'm grateful for, what happens is that for the remainder of the day, I just go through life in a good mood and I see more evidence of things to be grateful for, because that RAS, that reticular activating system, is now looking instinctively and unconsciously for more things to be grateful for. And when I do that, I'm just in a good mood. I'm not irritable, stressed. I don't lash out at staff or my wife or my kids. I'm in a good, calm mood. And so that's the first thing I do. I don't want to get too graphic here, but I know that a lot of people take their phone into the bathroom with them. I take my journal into the bathroom with them because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to be time efficient. So I tend to do the daily 20 in the bathroom each day. From there, I drink about two bottles two kind of 365 milliliter bottles. So what's that? Like 750 milliliters of water with some electrolytes in it. I then walk to the gym, and the walk is about 27, 28 minutes. And I deliberately walk instead of drive because I'm trying to get at least 10,000 steps walking each day. I do my workout in the gym from 8 until 9. Most of the time I'll shower at the gym, and then I'll walk up to my office. And we have an office there for alcohol-free lifestyle where we support entrepreneurs and executives to stop drinking. And again, I'm deliberately walking as opposed to getting an Uber or driving because I can get another 28 minutes of walking in and get more steps in there. And then I'll start the day usually around between 9:45 and 10 a.m. And I'll have a coffee. Most of the time it's black coffee because I don't like to put unnecessary calories in my system. I'm trying to keep nice and lean. Sometimes I'll have a cafe latte with full strength milk. And then I'll have a smaller lunch, and usually it's like chicken and vegetables. And then at nighttime, I like to eat a huge, big piece of steak. So 450 grams of red meat, grass fed, with some vegetables, maybe some ghee and some grass fed butter and things that get some good fats in there and some vegetables. And then I'm drinking, soda water, sparkling water at night. And then I make sure I stop eating and drinking at least 3 hours before sleep, because if you eat or drink within that 3-hour block of sleep, that will certainly compromise your sleep. And then rinse and repeat, really. So that's kind of like my morning routine and my daily routine. And that's generated the body that I think nature intended me to have. I feel good. Like I said, I'll be 50 in September. I have a testosterone levels 1,000 plus. I walk 10,000 steps a day at least. And, I feel good. It's not like I'm an Olympic athlete or anything, but I just feel good.
Well, look, 1,000 plus, guys, if you don't know, at that age is phenomenal. Most people at that age are typically probably more around 400, 3, 4, 500. So that's absolutely phenomenal. The other thing that you mentioned is sleep. You've mentioned that many times. And I think you even said that you had e-commerce when it came to sleep. When it comes to sleep, because I find this probably affects our day more than anything, good or bad. You hear people, I didn't sleep well last night. My mind was racing. What are some of the patterns or habits, things that people can do to have great sleep? Because I talk about all the time. I'm like, look, you should journal. I'm a huge fan of sleep meditation. I use it often. Solfeggio frequencies. What have you found, James, to really help people so that they do have that great night of sleep and they can go tackle whatever the next day challenge looks like?
Yes, I'm going to give you the gold standard of sleep here in just a moment. But first, I want to show you the exact opposite thing that you could do, like the absolute worst thing that you could do for your sleep. You're actually better off drinking alcohol for breakfast than you are anywhere close to bedtime, because at least then the body has 16 hours to get rid of the toxins from the alcohol so you can actually sleep properly. Most entrepreneurs, high performers, executives are drinking at nighttime within a few hours of sleep. And what they're doing is essentially clocking the body in for a night's work. But you've just completed a day's work, and now you're sending the body to work during sleep. The body doesn't want to work during sleep. The body wants to rest. So when you drink your wine, your beer, your vodka, whatever it is at nighttime, now the body has to go to work when you're sleeping. And so that shows up as you don't sleep as well. You don't spend as long in that deep restorative REM phase of sleep. You wake up just a little bit irritable and tired. That now leads to you making poor dietary choices throughout the day. You're foggy, you're distracted. And now, of course, you get stuck on this vicious cycle where you're just eagerly awaiting drinking more alcohol at night, and then the cycle continues. So my biggest piece of advice on what not to do is don't drink alcohol. And secondly, especially don't drink alcohol within 3 hours or within 16 hours, really, of sleep time if sleep is your goal. So now that's the bad news. The gold standard of sleep. Here's how you can really sleep the way that nature intended you to sleep. It starts with first thing in the morning. As soon as you wake up, try to expose your skin to sunlight. open up the blinds, go outside, our skin has receptors on it. And when the sunlight hits our skin, it tells our internal body clock, which is known as our circadian rhythm, oh, this is wake up time. So now our body starts to flood with those wake up hormones. We start to wake up, and there's an internal timer that goes off. The body goes, oh, okay, if this is wake up time, I know that pretty much in 16 hours from now, that's when I'll start to release melatonin into the system because you're probably going to want to sleep. That makes sense, right? Sadly, most of us are waking up in the morning, staying indoors, exposing ourselves to only artificial electronic light, not getting that natural light. And our body's thinking, is it wake up time? Is it not? Should I flood you with some wake up hormones? What time later on am I going to release the melatonin? It gets confused. And so that's why it shows up later on, either having trouble falling asleep, or you toss and turn in the night, or even after seemingly a great night's sleep, you're still feeling tired. So first step is, first thing in the morning, expose yourself to natural sunlight. Then, of course, go to the bathroom and do your daily 20, because then you're living a life of appreciation instead of expectation. If you're a coffee drinker, definitely you don't want to be drinking coffee after, say, 12 p.m. I have a rule, which is I only drink coffee in the mornings, never in the afternoons or evenings. Coffee is a stimulant, and that will affect your sleep, even if you swear by the fact that you can have a late night cappuccino and you fall asleep just fine. It will compromise your sleep. There's studies that suggest that morning exercise is better for sleep than afternoon or evening exercise. It's negligible. It's not a huge amount, but it's enough to be considered important for, say, a peak performer. So morning exercise certainly suggests that you'll sleep better. And I think that's because people who exercise in the morning tend to do it with more regularity. And so they're fitter overall. And that is conducive to a great night's sleep. Whereas people who do it in the afternoon or evening, they tend to let the day's distractions get in the way. And they go, you know what? I'm not going to do it today. Also, we want to sleep in a cool environment. So 65 to 69 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little chilly, but that's been shown the optimal temperature to sleep in. You don't want to sleep warm. So anything above 70, 71, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, your sleep is definitely going to be compromised. 65 to 69 degrees is the sweet spot. Definitely have your last meal 3 hours before your intended sleep time, because if you're eating food within that 3-hour block, the digestive system is going to work. And it's the same thing with the alcohol. Your body's now going to be working at a time where you want it to be resting. And then really, really important is to invest in a quality pair of orange lensed blue blocking glasses. Now, I have a sleep company called Swanwick Sleep. You can find it at swanwicksleep.com. And we create these scientifically proven orange lensed glasses. You put these glasses on in the last hour before you intend to sleep. The orange lens blocks the artificial blue light from your phone, TV, microwave light, bathroom light, kitchen light, speedometer light in your car, which messes with your melatonin production. If you're not wearing the glasses and you're exposed to artificial light at night, the melatonin doesn't release as much as it's supposed to. But when you wear the glasses for an hour before you go to sleep, you remove them just before you get into bed. Now your body has enabled itself to release the amount of melatonin required for optimal night's sleep. So if you do some or all of those things, JM, I would submit that your sleep is going to be remarkably better.
All right, Lise, my wife, if you heard this, I'm telling you, 69, 68 degrees. She thinks I'm crazy, James. She's like, that's way too cold. And the blue light, or sorry, you said yellow light. Was it blue light glasses?
Yeah, they're called blue blockers or blue light blocking glasses. Yes.
Cool.
They have an orange lens in them because orange is the opposite of blue. So orange blocks the blue light that comes out of all of our artificial light at night.
Yep, love it. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, how was it working at ESPN? As a kid that literally, that is on my, I can't say as much recently because I don't watch much TV, but gosh, college, I literally SportsCenter just ran. How was it, brother? Was it amazing? Obviously, you said it was your dream job, and then you started even, I don't know how long you were there, but then into your entrepreneur space. How was it, brother? Was it amazing? Was it not what you expected? What was the experience like?
I absolutely loved it. It was a dream come true for me. When I was a little kid growing up in Brisbane, Australia, my mother would bring home this video camera. This was about 1990, and my brothers and I would pretend to be news anchors and television hosts, and we'd act out this like cops and robbers scene and things like that. And so I've got all these wonderful home videos from 1990 of that. And so I always dreamed as a young kid of hosting a television show, and I got to do it on Sports Center and ESPN at Bristol, Connecticut, which was just a dream come true. Listen, I did that from 2010 until 2012. I absolutely loved it because I got to watch and talk about sport all day. I had let's call it a Z level of fame. I got to dine with Magic Johnson in the ESPN cafeteria. I met folks like Tim Tebow and David Beckham, Scott Van Pelt, who's been the Sports Center host now for years. I got to meet what's his name? I'm so sorry, I forgot it. Stuart Scott, who sadly passed. He's passed in 2010, but I got to spend a little bit of time with him in the first couple of months that I was working there. And, being around those guys and talking sport all day and watching sport was just fantastic. Now, having said all of that, JM, I also realized that it was corporate America. ESPN is owned by Disney, and ultimately I still had to start work at a certain time. I still had to leave work at a certain time. I still only got the certain amount of vacation periods a year and all that kind of stuff. And so towards the end of 2012, I realized that my desire to be an entrepreneur and control my own financial destiny was greater than the enjoyment and pleasure that I was getting from working at ESPN in a very, very great, comfortably paid, compensated job and career. And so I made the choice to leave ESPN and go and be an entrepreneur. Candidly, I really struggled for the 18 months after I quit, and I was questioning the decision. But thankfully, it worked out all right because I started this alcohol business, which has now exploded into, helping thousands of high achievers over the world. I started this e-commerce business, Swanwick Sleep. And, now I have a life of freedom and I can do it on my terms. So that's a long way of saying I absolutely loved my experience there. And at the same time, I realized it was just for 2 years. That was a phase of life. And really the entrepreneurial world is for me these days.
Cool phase, man. What a cool season of life, if you will. And the entrepreneur spirit just came through. You had to do what you got to do, man. I totally get it. James, I can't believe how fast this has gone. Is there anything I didn't ask you as we start to wrap up that you want to make sure to share with the audience as we start to wrap this up?
Thank you, JM. Well, I would just say I've had a life with alcohol and a life without, and without is so much better. You don't need to be an alcoholic or waking up in a ditch to realize that even one or two seemingly innocent drinks per day or per night could be compromising your life, could be compromising your marriage, could be compromising your presence with your children. It could be affecting your business. You could be procrastinating, using alcohol to numb yourself from the pain of being yourself, and therefore you procrastinate on decisions that need to get done. And so I would just invite you to ponder an alcohol-free lifestyle, either reducing or stopping entirely. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, JM. If someone would like to read the book's called Clear, the only neuroscience-based approach to help high achievers finally break free from alcohol without AA, rehab, or willpower. It's available at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/clear and available online wherever any books are sold after April 8th. And so that's it, really. I just want to help inspire people to really explore their relationship with alcohol at the very least.
Yeah, brother, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all your wisdom. I mean, again, these are questions I think people ponder, and yet there's so much societal pressure, if you will, so much of what they're used to. So I think you really shined a lot of light on what that could look like if people make that choice. So thank you, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, JM. I appreciate you having me.
I mean, look, guys, we talked about a ton. We talked about mindset, which you guys know I'm a huge fan of. We talked about good sleep. We talked about how this could look if you make this decision. There's so much goodness in here. Share this with someone you know and love and care about, because I think we deserve to have this knowledge. Whether you make the choice to go alcohol free or not, you can at least share it, and this is something you can consider. So make sure to do that. Until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon.